You've been performing for so long, you forgot who you were before the applause. You don't need a new identity. You need to come home to the one you abandoned. It's time to change the narrative. It's time to recognize who you are. You are not an imposter. You are not a mistake. You are not a placeholder in your own life. Over the last few months, I've been doing something I wish more people in this space would do. I've been listening, not casually, not anecdotally, but intentionally. I've been running focus groups, interviewing people who struggle with imposter thoughts, reviewing clinical literature, and paying attention to the patterns that show up when people talk about self-doubt. And what I found was not random, not coincidental, and not subtle. There is a deep, consistent correlation between people who struggle with imposter thoughts and people who have or had a relationship with a narcissist. The connection is undeniable because here's the truth. Nobody gets to impostorism by themselves. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides to question their competence despite years of evidence. Nobody suddenly believes they are unworthy, unqualified, or undeserving without a relational trigger. Imposter thoughts don't appear out of thin air. They are shaped, reinforced, and repeated by someone who benefits from you doubting yourself, someone who chips away at your confidence, someone who moves the goalposts, someone who corrects you more than they celebrate you, someone who needs you small so they can feel big. In every focus group, every interview, every story, the same pattern emerged. The person feeling like an imposter had a narcissist in their life. Sometimes it was a parent, sometimes a partner, sometimes a boss, sometimes a friend, but the dynamic was the same. The narcissist needed control, and the easiest way to maintain control was to destabilize the other person's sense of self. Imposter thoughts were not a personal flaw. They were a relational injury. And when you understand that impostorism is relational, everything starts to make sense. You begin to see how gaslighting becomes the foundation of self-doubt. You begin to see how emotional manipulation becomes the soundtrack of your achievements. You begin to see how subtle criticism becomes a constant hum in the background of your success. You begin to see how every accomplishment is met with a reminder of what you should have done better. Narcissists don't just question your competence, they question your reality. One of the most striking patterns in my research was how predictable narcissistic behavior becomes once you start paying attention. Every time someone in the focus group shared a moment of achievement, there was a corresponding moment of sabotage. Every time they felt proud, the narcissist introduced doubt. Every time they gained clarity, the narcissist created confusion. Every time they moved forward, the narcissist pulled them back. It was a cycle, and the cycle was intentional. And here's the part that hit people the hardest. Imposter thoughts were never their voice. They were echoes, echoes of someone else's insecurity, echoes of someone else's fear of losing control, echoes of someone else's need to dominate the emotional landscape. When you internalize someone else's voice long enough, you start mistaking it for your own. That's how impostorism takes root. Not because you lack ability, but because you've been conditioned to question your identity. In one focus group, a participant said something that stopped the room. I didn't realize I wasn't doubting myself. I was repeating what they told me. That's the moment impostorism breaks open. When you realize the doubt didn't originate in you, you stop treating it like a personal defect. You start seeing it as a wound. And wounds can be healed, but only if you're willing to name where they came from. Naming the narcissist is one of the hardest steps in this process. It feels disloyal. It feels confrontational. It feels like you're betraying someone you care for, but naming is not betrayal. Naming is clarity. Naming is how you stop carrying responsibility for someone else's behavior. Naming is how you stop blaming yourself for the emotional injuries they caused. Naming is how you stop performing for their approval. Naming is how you begin to reclaim your identity. And once you name the narcissist, you begin to see the pattern clearly. You begin to see how they position themselves as the authority on your worth. You begin to see how they use criticism as a tool. You begin to see how they withheld praise to keep you dependent. You begin to see how they framed your success as luck instead of skill. You begin to see how they created chaos so you would rely on them for stability. You begin to see how they needed your doubt to maintain their dominance. Another pattern that showed up in the research was how often people blamed themselves for being too sensitive, reading too much into things, or not being confident enough. But when we unpacked those statements, what we found wasn't sensitivity. It was conditioning. Narcissists condition you to second guess your instincts. They condition you to reinterpret harm as misunderstanding. They condition you to minimize your own emotional injuries. They condition you to believe that your reactions are the problem instead of their behavior. And once that conditioning takes hold, imposter thoughts become the natural outcome. You're not doubting your ability. You're doubting your right to trust yourself. What struck me most was how many participants said they didn't realize they were in a narcissistic dynamic until they started talking about their accomplishments. The moment they described achieving something meaningful, they immediately followed it with a story about someone diminishing it. Every achievement had an attached insult. Every milestone had an attached criticism. Every moment of pride had an attached correction. Narcissists don't just undermine your confidence. They attach themselves to your success like a shadow. And when someone repeatedly dims your light, you eventually start believing the lie that you were never shining in the first place. So as we move deeper into this conversation, I want you to hold on to one truth. Impostorism is not a personality trait. It's a trauma response. It's the residue of relational harm. It's the imprint of someone else's insecurity. And once you understand that, you can finally stop fighting yourself and start addressing the real source. You can begin to separate your voice from theirs. You can begin to reclaim your achievements without apology. You can begin to rebuild your identity without permission, because healing imposter thoughts isn't about becoming more confident. It's about becoming more free. This is why boundaries become essential. Boundaries are not just emotional protection. They are psychological correction. Boundaries disrupt the narcissistic cycle. Boundaries interrupt the manipulation. Boundaries expose the pattern. Boundaries reveal the truth. When you set a boundary with a narcissist, you don't just protect your peace. You reveal their behavior. You reveal their entitlement. You reveal their insecurity. You reveal their dependence on your self-doubt. And yes, the moment you set a boundary, the narcissist will react. They will accuse you of being selfish. They will claim you're overreacting. They will rewrite history. They will weaponize guilt. They will try to pull you back into the cycle. But their reaction is not evidence that your boundary is wrong. It's evidence that your boundary is working. Narcissists don't react to boundaries because they're hurt. They react because they're losing control. So if you've been carrying imposter thoughts, I want you to hear this clearly. You didn't get here alone. Someone taught you to doubt yourself. Someone benefited from your uncertainty. Someone shaped your internal narrative. And now you have the opportunity to rewrite it. You have the opportunity to name the source. You have the opportunity to set boundaries. You have the opportunity to reclaim your identity. You have the opportunity to stop performing and start belonging. And as you move forward, remember this: imposter thoughts are not a reflection of your ability, they are a reflection of your environment. Change the environment, and the thoughts begin to shift. Name the narcissist, and the doubt begins to dissolve. Set the boundary, and the healing begins. You are not an imposter. You are someone who survived emotional manipulation, and now you're learning to live in your truth. Before you go, the Impostor Phenomenon Guide is a free digital workbook designed to help you recognize self-doubt, reclaim your confidence, and own every accomplishment you've earned. No fluff, no toxic positivity, just real tools that work. If you're listening on a podcast platform, the link is in the description. If you're on YouTube, it's pinned in the channel links as well. Go grab it. Friend, it's free and waiting for you. So take a breath, settle in, and let's begin the work of separating who you are from who you've been performing to be, because it's time to stop performing and start belonging. Welcome to the work. Welcome to the becoming. Welcome to Unmasking the Imposter. Thank you for listening to the Impostor Phenomenon podcast. If today's episode opened something in you, share it with someone who needs this conversation too. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And if you're ready to go deeper, get ready to join our community where we're doing the real work of reclaiming identity, rewriting narratives, and rebuilding belonging from the inside out. Remember, you are not an imposter. You are not a mistake. You are the author, and your story is far from finished.